Greetings again to all of you. So we discussed today, um, especially the three torments of one soul that takes place in connection with Mitya. And what has happened so far is that Mitya is accused. He's accused of murdering his own father, and he's accused wrongly. So Dostoevsky uses this moment to show a transformation of a soul, the possibility of going from torment, the possibility of going from passion and turning towards the beauty. Always for Dostoevsky, always in general for Dostoevsky. I saw the lie was too much there. Sorry. So in general for Dostoevsky, the focus is on beauty. It's not on truth. It's not on whether we know things or we do not know things, but rather on whether we experience beauty within our hearts. This is actually why. This is one of the reasons why we. Forgive me, I should have arranged this camera before. So this is one of the reasons why we talk about the brothers Karamazov in connection with the human soul, because we perceive here in Dostoevsky how a human soul works in order to really turn itself towards the beautiful. So for Dostoevsky, as it is for other philosophers, especially for example Emmanuel Levinas, who's a French philosopher, ethics and I would say beauty comes before truth. That is, it's no longer so important whether something is true or not, but what's important is the relationship that one has with another human being. Um, let's talk about the three torments. So at the beginning, when Mitya is accused of murdering his father, he says, I am not guilty. The first answer of the human soul is to say that he is not responsible. He claims that the brokenness around himself, the brokenness in the world, cannot be put on his own shoulders. And at that moment, something quite spectacular takes place. Grushenka, who some of you may call us a slut, or who doesn't have a good press so far in the novel, except perhaps the moment with Alyosha, says, it is my fault. She says, my beloved, the one I love most, is broken, and his brokenness is on my shoulder. I am responsible for the state in which Mitya is. She doesn't say, of course, in a legal sense. She's not responsible for the death of Fyodor Karamazov in a legal sense, in a juridical sense. She doesn't say, I have deed or I have committed a deed, but rather she says that morally she is responsible for for that which happened. So let me put it again. For Mitya, at the beginning he understands responsibility in a juridical sense. There is one event, the murder of his father, and that event has causes, and he claims that did not participate as a cause in that event. The murder of his father did not happen because of him. He refuses responsibility for that action. Grushenka, on the other hand, accepts that Mitya is a murderer. She believes at the beginning that Mitya indeed had killed his father. However, she says, I am guilty. So knowingly, knowing that Mitya admitted, no, forgive me, knowing that Mitya is the murderer, although Mitya is not again, she takes the responsibility on her. She says, I am the one guilty. Even if um, she believes that juridical responsibility is indeed on Mitya. So Grushenka again shows a wonderful aspect, shows her ability of seeing responsibility beyond just cause and effect. She takes on herself that which may have been on her beloved, because the moment she perceives that her beloved is broken, she takes that responsibility on her. Well, this expression of love, because that's what it is in Grushenka, she expresses her love, changes Mitya. This expression of love is again an onion that someone receives in the book. And when he hears her, he says, "Why such love for me?" Certainly, those are the words that Father Zosima uttered before, that the Father Zosima's brother uttered before as well. And it is the moment in which someone realizes the depth of one's soul. Because when you perceive such love of someone else for you, a love that takes responsibility for actions that you may have done, someone who claims that even if this person did something wrong, let him be or let her be, but the responsibility is on me, is the um, probably the supreme act of love that someone can do in this life. And it makes you encounter your own soul. It makes you face your own soul. It makes you face your own life. And it makes you wonder about the depth of your own being. And this action of love from Grushenka puts or sends Mitya on a different quest. On the one hand, he is faced with prosecution. He is faced with the accusation of murder. On the other hand, he is faced with his own self. He is faced with looking into the depth, forgive me, of his own soul, and in looking into the darkness of his own passions. So let's move to the second torment then. At that moment, he confesses. He tells the prosecution everything that he has done, and he assumes responsibility for all the action that he has done before that. He only leaves something unmentioned, and that is, of course, what happened between him and Katerina. Because, and that is very important, because it is a question of honor connected with another human being. So he confesses everything, including those who may show him as a shameful human being. He confesses all of them, except something. Forgive me. Forgive me. Except something that may shame another human being, and that is Katya. In this moment, he's still not going all way. He's still not taking responsibility for everything. The way in which Grushenka took responsibility for something she had not done, because she says that I am responsible for what he did. So he still takes responsibility for what he has done. It is my responsibility for all the actions in which I was. But this one, the murder of my own father, is not, because I did not do it. So from the two steps are, at the beginning, he says, I am not responsible. And he is confronted at that moment with Grushenka's love, because she says, I am responsible. I will go with you wherever you need to go. And then because of that manifestation of love, he changes to assuming responsibility for everything in which he was, but is still not a responsibility for something that he has not done. That's the second torment, right? And the third torment is in pure exhaustion. He is finished. Physically and psychologically, he is finished, but at the moment of being finished, of being not destroyed, but exhausted, not being able to do anything anymore, he is finally confronted with himself, fully, completely. It's the exhaustion that he has is not only from the first, from that from what happens between him and the prosecution. It's more than that. It is the fight that he has with his own soul. It is the fight that he has with his own way of being. And at that moment, at the pure exhaustion, when you can see that there is nothing in you that you can rely on, when you see that there is nothing in you that can make you good, or there's nothing in you, don't understand me wrongly, nothing in you that makes you good sounds horrible. There's nothing in you, like in your own powers. I can do the good if I want to. But rather, the only thing that you can find is the love that another human being has for you. And that love gives you power. At that moment, he is finally revealed with what Dostoevsky, I think, considers the truth. And that is, I am responsible for everything. For things that I have done directly, or for things that I have done only indirectly, I contributed to. And finally, actually, everything that takes place around me is in my responsibility. Mitya says, we are all cruel, we are all monsters, we all cause suffering to people, but I am worse than anyone. Please read the story with the Bayern, and you have a question on that on the forum, because this is very connected with this. So, we began with this idea that in Dostoevsky, the focus is truth, and is beauty, not truth. And beauty is found in relationship. And beauty is found in someone's love for someone else, in someone giving oneself completely for someone else, in assuming responsibility for all the troubles that another one was involved into, in becoming himself a living sacrifice for the other. And we could ask, uh, where do we find love, and where do we find beauty in this world? And just think of anything that takes place in the world today. Think of anything that has taken place in the world. Think of the Holocaust. Think of the communist persecution. Think of all your encounters with people who are sick in the hospitals. Do we find beauty in there? Do we find beauty in the lack of power, in the lack of the ability to do good for oneself and for the other around you? And probably the answer is no. But the answer is also yes, because what we find when we find beauty in a moment in which someone gives his or her own life for another human being, not in the sense in which he or she dies, but rather says, I am responsible for you. I am here for you, and I am here with you, living in the midst of your darkness. I think that for Dostoevsky, and this book on Mitya, on the torments of his soul, is again, once again, one of the most important books in the book. For Dostoevsky, this is the primary idea that he develops in the book. Beauty is everywhere, as long as I am able to live for another human being. Please watch as well the video you have in the PowerPoint. It is the speech of a character in a movie, Samwise Gamgee, in The Lord of the Rings. And I sometimes use this video for another class, for Intro to Philosophy, those who have taken it already. But I think it's the speech of someone who takes responsibility for his own world. See you next week. If I can close this one.